Hi, everybody. This is Chloe Hudson with World Peace Projects. Thank you so much for joining me. Please go ahead and hit that like button. It helps me tremendously. So today's topic is lust. I'm diving into this topic for several different reasons. One is because everybody seemed to really enjoy or watch the succubus video I made. And a lot of questions came through, which of course geared towards sexual energy. Now, lust is not by any means only about sexual energy, but that tends to be the predominant focus when we think about it. So I've got a ton of notes, and I'm going to try to take us step by step. This is going to be a pretty comprehensive class. And first, I guess I'll start off with explaining my perspective on this. Now, lust has come up for probably all of us in our life, whether we utilize it, whether we're experiencing it. And it's something that has been a big focus in my life currently and with a lot of clients. So I'm sure a lot of you guys notice, whether you're, in the spiritual field or just living your day to day, that when you're going through certain experiences, you tend to manifest other situations or people around you that are also dealing with that type of experience because frequency signatures attract each other. So my background from childhood is I was raised Catholic, and my mother, who almost became a nun, I thank her all the time for not doing that, otherwise I would not be here, was very, to put it nicely, extremely reserved around sexuality. So I grew up with an aversion to my sexuality. And the people that know me well, my friends in my life, know that when I'm not in relationship, I have quite a prudish nature about me. So I've had to grapple a lot in my life by being really repulsed, honestly, by lust and a lot of this type of sexual energy coming forward. So I might have a swing in the information here on that side. At this point in my life, with what my current events have been, I'm just really fed up with it. I'm sick and tired and exhausted of dealing with lust being thrown around in such a careless manner, because lust, like many of the sins, extremely quickly and thoroughly turns into a form of chaos magic. Most people are not aware that they're utilizing it in this way, or it's become that type of energetic event. And that can bring all sorts of karmic retribution and disappointments. It ruins people's lives all the time. Lust is also a highly utilized strategy to get what it is that you want, right? So what is lust? Okay, so I might be referring to lust today as lechery, lasciviousness, one of my favorite words. But the definition, Wikipedia, is an intense longing or unbridled sexual desire for either money, food, drink, fame, knowledge, or, of course, sexual engagement. Lust, by nature, it's a sensory experience that we feel. It involves bliss, excitement, joy, and the anticipation of erotic pleasure. Now, lust, it creates a probability of people losing their sensibilities. They're often unable to recognize the reality of a situation around them, or they simply choose to neglect the reality. So says Wikipedia. Lust, in my take of this, like most things we talk about here on this channel, it's a survival mechanism for our fragmented aspect, or alter, as I've referred to. Without lust, the aspect has to begin facing the emotional agony that it has experienced from the original fracture. So the lust will also always fulfill some need for the aspect to re-experience the original loop. Now, the loop is always what the aspect or the fragment is trapped in, but it's also a flag trying to get your attention to show you where to look to help it and help you. If you don't deal with the aspect, but you withdraw or abstain from lust in certain ways in your life, the aspect will simply redirect its survival mechanism. It'll be subverted to another coping mechanism, which is usually another sin that holds the same frequency signature. So, what's happening with lust physiologically and hormonally? Well, lust is usually engaged through our limbic system. This is the part of our body that delivers our emotions, our behaviors. It is responsible for a lot of our long-term memory, olfaction, and our endocrine system, which is geared around our hormones. It affects our autonomic nervous system, which is where we utilize certain aspects of sexual arousal, our heart rate, respiration, pupillary response, reproduction, caring for our young, and fight or flight. And a lot of these things, when we think of that, it can definitely pertain to sexual desires, right? The autonomic nervous system and the limbic system play a huge role in sexual arousal. It's where the high from recreational drugs is stimulated in this part of our body. So some of the causes of lust stem from massive ego. We'll see this a lot in people with big egos or shallow personalities. It could be from somebody being raised in a lustful environment and or a very controlling environment. This can stem from severe sexual repression, such as religious or any type of household where you weren't allowed to express yourself naturally and creatively. This absolutely can come from being raised by narcissistic and or pathological parents, which can often transfer to the child, and that will express itself in their adulthood or in their teens. This is definitely something that happens after sexual abuse and many different types of abuse. Lust will really be a utilized technique if you experience from childhood the Oedipus or Electra complex. And also this can be something that those who are highly entitled utilize. So celestially speaking, lust can be ruled by Luciferian or Jupiterian factors. This will be a less violent type of lust and a more lascivious frequency. It can also be satanic, which will definitely have a much more aggressive or violent tone to it. Pluto also represents control factors, which lust can be a form of controlling situations. And Venus, as most of us know, speaks to love. Mars is a more dominant love-lust type of planet. Now, styles of lust are run the gamut, but some that are very common, this can be passive. This can be kind of covert lust. It can be very aggressive. It can be repressed, and when it's repressed, it usually comes out and is expressed in a huge bang because it just gets leaked out, or it's volatile like a volcano. This can be suave. It can be very grotesque. Obviously, it's going to be seductive. We'll experience lust through passionate acts and other types of styles that come about. The way that lust can manifest is it's inherently insatiable and hungry or thirsty by nature. You can't get enough of it. It's exploitive, and it brings a quick high with a rapid descent and a bottoming out, very much like a drug. Remember, this activates the part of our brain that gives us that high when we're utilizing recreational drugs. The difference, one of the key differences between the frequency signature of sacred sexuality and lust is such that sacred sexuality, sensuality, and eroticism has a distinct frequency that is already fulfilled. It's already filled up. And because of that, it's simply a sharing and an overflow of this sensual divinity. It's protective, it's protected, and it's rejuvenating. And then on the other end of that, when we're looking at lust as a more shadow experience, as we said, it's exploitive. It's already empty and bottom out. So it's siphoning. It creates vulnerability. It creates dangerous situations, energetic vampirism. It's needing to take and not being able to give back in a way that's sustainable. So lust can manifest in ways of hiding the energy, hoarding or coveting the energy. When I think of this, I think of, I forget what his name is, but on the Lord of the Rings, the little guy that was like, my precious. This is that type of energy. It's fragmented. It's compulsive. It's very predatory. It's absolutely a depletion and an energetic siphoning. So it reminds me of how people talk about when people utilize cocaine and they feel the high, and then they feel like a piece of poop after. They feel really down and ashamed of themselves. What I've noticed with people that are utilizing lust to mass amounts, this is their experience. They'll get high and then they'll bottom out, but they'll feel really horrible about themselves because that's the type of energetic take that it requires. Lust manifests through lies, manipulation, deceit, infidelity. And when I speak about infidelity, I'm not just talking about obvious sexual fornication infidelity. There's all types of infidelity. There's emotional, there's intellectual, there's mental, there's psychic, there's psychological. There's many types of infidelity. It just depends on what your boundaries and your red flags are in relationship. Lust will also bring about a mass amount of gaslighting, blame, denial, a secretiveness and a sneaky tactics being utilized. People that utilize lust will be highly strategic. And of course, it comes chock full of very shameful sexual acts. And this depends on what you term as shameful in your own morale. If you're somebody who is heterosexual and you have a judgment around homosexual engagement, but the lust drives you to engage bisexually, then this can create shame for you. Maybe this creates situations where you start paying for sex or being paid for sex, or, sneaking out at night and engaging with people that, other than this lusty sexual engagement, you would never affiliate with because you don't enjoy their type of energy. This could be, sexual clubs or groups, anything that in your take of your boundaries you desire, but know that feels shameful for you, because for other people that could be what's comfortable and healthy in their mindset. Lust is also highly attractive. It's very magnetic and it's intoxicating. Lust has the ability to subdue its prey or its target. We've talked about this in the classes where I was teaching psychic protection and the different types of entities and energies that come forward. I think I also talked about this in the succubus video. So of course, this video is going to overlay with that one. The ability for succubus energy or lust energy to basically inject an intoxicant, think pheromones, into the prey or the target. That person becomes mesmered, magnetized to them. They're in a stupor or a stunned-like state that takes them out of their reality, and now they navigate through this type of lust come hither energy. Energetically speaking, by nature, it's highly chaotic and it's consuming. It is insidious and it slides in. It's contagious and it's very addictive. It messes with our brain chemistry. We've already talked about how it accesses the limbic system. It is a requirement of lust to distort your emotions and your perceptions. And this goes across the board for the giver and the receiver. When people are engaging in lust, and lust itself will hide its motives very well. It is absolutely a control mechanism, because in order to gauge into lust, you are creating a controlled environment where other types of more open-hearted and naturally creative normal energies of sensuality or enjoying food or whatever it is don't have the ability to come through. Lust leaves a seed imprint of the motive and the insight of the history of this lust frequency or the person utilizing lust in it. And if you are adept at reading frequency signatures and investigating and tracking these types of energies, you will be able to access that seed imprint and read into the motive and the history of the person that is throwing lust at you, or maybe that is enjoying lust that you're throwing at them. Now, if you're dealing with an overwhelm of sexual or relationship difficulties, please check out my sex and relationships course. It can help you. It's on sale. I think they're $100 right now, which is fantastic price because it's like 10 hours of information. So back to the energies of lust. It's highly destructive and it's very difficult to disentangle from. Now, a lot of people engage in lust in their relationships in a more minor way. So I'm not really referring to that. This would be something that's already up for you, something that you know you're experiencing that's making you uncomfortable. Lust creates blocks of true heart purity. Even if you do consider yourself somebody with an open heart, the frequency nature of lust is a block to heart purity. So you might still be engaging in it and enjoy that as part of your foreplay in your single life or your relationship. But nevertheless, it's one of those types of energies that does that to our heart vulnerability and openness. It hides vulnerability very, very well. And that can often be the subconscious factor of why it's being utilized in the first place. Lust is like a moth to the flame in regard to entities and dark energies, the negative org, what have you. Because lust is such a attractive sin, it calls in a tremendous amount of dark energies and entities, implants, all sorts of agendas and contracts. Lust absolutely comes chock full of negative energetic contracts with those types of people or whatever you're engaging in. For the emotional, sexual, energetic body, if you're taking a look at this and you can view clairvoyantly somebody's body or your own, if you've been engaging in this, it will look diseased. It will be very chaotic. It will be full of the negative black goo, if you know what that is. It has a gummy type of texture to it, and it will also look infested. There will be holes, leaks, leeches, parasites, etheric spiders, what have you. Especially if it's somebody who's been engaging in lust primarily for a very long time. The body will look extremely unhealthy and very unattractive if you're able to look at that energetically, which is going to be a huge dichotomy to the possible physical features of the person or the energy of attraction through lust. So if you can look behind the veil, you will often see a very shocking differentiation to what's coming at you and what's actually really in front of you if you look a little bit deeper. It oozes. It becomes gaseous or noxious through pheromonal intoxicants. As I said, it forms a chaos magic that can be very powerful. It's often used consciously to be a chaos magic. The way I view it and have experienced it is that lust energies create a suction-like portal of energy. This would be akin to if I was at 30,000 feet on an airplane and the flight attendant decides to open the hatch door and it creates a vacuum suck of everything inside. That's that type of frequency. That vacuum-like suck energy is what helps entities and shadow energies trail along like a gravitational pull. It's like a lot like how the celestial bodies gravitationally drag smaller bodies or debris. This is how a lot of those entities and energies can stay engaged in this type of energy. And then when they want, they can hop out of that vacuum and latch on to any of the participants engaging or that are within the vicinity of lust. It often and very commonly creates a limerence. So limerence is obsessive thoughts, fantasies, desires to form and maintain a romantic and reciprocated relationship with the object of one's love. This is often unrequited love. Limerence can take over your life. It can create a focus only on that person that you're experiencing limerence through and completely pull you out of your reality. A lot of people experience this and they might presume that they're infatuation or in the early romantic stages when they're actually engaging in a very surreal experience that is ungrounding them and giving them these rose-colored glasses. And it can be something that is on the mind or in the emotions 24/7. So it's like no longer do you have your independence or command over your own life. Lust is very insidious in the thought forms, and limerence can be one example of that. But also, if you think about somebody lusting over somebody else, it grows in the mind like weeds or vines thoroughly. It fills everything like a fog. Now, I've talked about this before, though, if you don't understand the energetics of the sexual body, for somebody who can access another sexual body or their own energetically clairvoyantly, you can absolutely track all of the sexual partners that one individual has ever had if that individual has not gone in or had their sexual body cleansed and cleared. So it becomes a web and a network of sexual people. And what is very dangerous about this is that if somebody doesn't know to go into their sexual body, I always do this to my sexual body and anybody I commit to, and I let them know. I ask permission, of course. But if I'm going to commit to somebody and we're going to have a sexual relationship, hands down, before that happens, I am going to go in and do a mass deep cleaning of their sexual body. And one of the reasons being is because when your sexual body engages with somebody else, it creates a histological trail. And their energy is still in your field. Your energy is still in their field. So you're still having a kind of a telepathic energetic exchange. Obvious examples of this is when somebody's still obsessed over you, or they're always thinking about you, or they're coming back, or you're getting their thoughts, or you're telepathically connected. This can show up for other partners subconsciously when maybe your new partner has some suspicions around somebody, or they can't quite put their finger on it, but there's something there that really makes them uncomfortable. It might make them look jealous, and it might make you look or feel exasperated because you're being loyal. Though what they're often picking up on is the remnants of the sexual energy of another party or even a person that's still pressing your energy. This happens all the time. This still happens to me in a way where it takes me a little while to pinpoint what exactly is happening. And it can be very palpable because people usually are not careful with their energy and how they're expressing it or pushing it into somebody else's field. So when you're engaging in lust, your sexual body is going to be completely mired. And if you think about spider web, it's very sticky. It grabs all sorts of things. And there's a requirement if you want to cleanse your sexual body to go in there and clean out all of those contracts and connections and energies, sludge and gook. Because when that's happening too, now you're not only tethered to that one person that you've been sexual with, but now you're tethered to all the people they've been sexual with. So imagine how quickly that turns into a huge network of sexual energy that's messing with your very personal sacred frequency. Okay, so effects of lust. This often leads to obsession, a sense of possession. There's absolutely energetic hooks and tentacles, suctions, stingers, siphons, what have you. It creates a tremendous amount of karmic baggage, cords, and tethers. Because lust is an act of passion. And when we're engaging with that much energy exchange, when we engage through that type of frequency, we're contracting energetically with the other parties or the individual. And when this is done through chaos magic, there's an instant karmic load. And depending on if you're engaging with lust in a way that you've also been utilizing deceit, betrayal, infidelity, you know, lies, sneakiness, if you're doing other sins to hide or, hide the lust or gain more lust into your life, usually the karma is going to play out really quick. You might not recognize it because it might not be with that person that you've already deceived or betrayed or lied to or what have you. It'll play out in another vein. And it often play out tenfold because the universe wants you to get it. They're going to keep smacking you on the head until you realize, or hopefully universe is hoping you realize, hey, get out of this mess. Every time we smack you, we just push you down deeper. And now you got to climb back out. And you don't even have time to climb out before we smack you again. So, it's very important to understand because you're consumed in this addiction of lust and the high of it while you're creating so much karmic load around you. And I'm laughing. It's not, it's by no means funny for those who are experiencing it, but I'm laughing because it's often so obvious that that's what's happening. But that aspect, that fractured aspect of the person that doesn't want to look at themselves, so is using lust to keep the aspect hidden, is making sure that person isn't going to catch this drift, right? Lust, because it attracts so many entities, it can be highly demonic. Highly demonic. It's used often, sex magic and dark magic. That's very dangerous, highly karmic magic. So that creates a extreme opening for full possession of entities and demons and what have you. Now, the unfortunate thing about these types of possessions is when it moves through the sexual body, often, even though other people might be adept at seeing the entity in the lustful person, the lust is like a drug. It's a stupor. It's a mesmer. So that person will often be very oblivious to the fact that they are possessed. They won't even really think twice about or deeply that their whole life has changed, that they're losing things, losing people, because the entity that's possessing them has them like a marionette, moving forward through it. And so they're in this drug-like state where maybe they see it a little bit, maybe they think about it for a moment, but they just keep moving through while they're possessed and seduced by the entities that are now pushing them to effort to possess other people and seduce other people. It can be a complete mental takeover. Often, if you look at energetically somebody who uses a lot of lustful engagement and activities, you'll see different leeches on their mind. You'll find parasites. You'll find the encephalopod, which is the octopi-like creatures. You might find Cthulhu's, which is a much more dangerous type octopus. You often see it's black, it's sitting up somebody's head, and then the tentacles access in, and it's full mind control. This can create an experience where this person sees red through anger or rage, and very often they will be experiencing delusions of grandeur. Because if you become somebody who is starting to become intermediate or in their own mind mastering the techniques of lust, they're going to see themselves as highly attractive and desirable, better than others, thinking that you can get whatever it is that they want, right? So strategies used in lust. So lust signatures can be and are often sent telepathically. They're sent psychically, energetically, what have you, just like most frequency signatures. Lust spots lust. Lust also spots vulnerable prey to lust. Lust frequency will spot other lust or vulnerable prey before the person that is engaging in the lust can even become conscious of the other person, right? This goes back to that type of experience where somebody's looking at you, you look over, you notice they're looking at you, and then you register that's why you looked over. It's kind of that type of recognition on the subconscious level. Lust creates mass spell casting, which will be very distorted and chaotic because you're probably not meaning to spell cast, and it's wild energy, thinking of explosion of orgasm and passion. It's just going in all directions, and it's incongruent and discombobulated. And so it's all of these weird kind of fracture spells going all over the place, which usually aren't strong enough to stick necessarily, but are absolutely creating karma back to the person that's throwing out all this chaos. Strategically, a lot of people that engage in lust are actually utilizing sex mesmers. This can be hard to spot. They might not even know that they're doing this. And this is where that, stupor comes in, and why the limerence starts to take over, and why people get so addicted, even the partners maybe that have been preyed upon, how they can't get out of it or they become entangled. It's because they're mesmered. I've experienced this a lot, and it's really unfortunate. And it's easy when you're realizing that you're going through this type of thing. It's easy to feel ashamed of yourself, guilty, harass yourself, be bad, heavy on yourself. But the thing is about this, it's really important for you to differentiate between your feelings and their feelings, because underneath lust will always be a mass amount of shame, feeling unworthy and undervalued or not valuable. Because lust creates such a telepathic, psychic initiation and connection with both parties engaging, if you're somebody who lust has been thrown at you and you engaged with it, and now you're kind of waking up to what was happening, and you feel all this shame, and you feel guilty, and you feel gross, stop and check yourself. Is this your energy or is it theirs? Because when they're siphoning you, it's kind of like there's a pressure release valve that's spewing out all the other gook that can get globbed onto you. So you might be empathing their emotions and confusing it with your own, because you will absolutely have the ability to feel their shame. And if there's somebody who uses lust often in a very forceful way and as a primary ability to attract people or resources or what have you, there will be mass amounts of undertone shame. It just comes with the territory. Karmically speaking, I know that these things can happen just because we're engaging physically, but right now I'm talking karmically. Things are always multi-layered. There's always multiple reasons for things. Karmically speaking, lust energetically attracts STDs, because STDs is a physical manifestation through a distorted and perverted use of our divine ability to alchemize on this planet. Our sensuality and our sexuality was gifted to us through Creator Spirit to manifest divinity into the physical. It is meant to be, or can be, an extremely powerful and pure creation alchemy. And because it's so powerful, when it's utilized in a distorted or perverted way, it will always create karma, because it's a concentrated energy. So STDs is a physical frequency signature of the match, the same range as lust. It can also create pregnancy, because karmically speaking, that can be I mean, hopefully you embrace if that happens to you and you take that as a blessing, because karma is meant to alter your trajectory and put you on correct course or higher divine course. Though often when somebody becomes pregnant, they might feel burdened by that. They might feel like their life is now ruined potentially. And it is a huge responsibility. And it is a direct match to the complete, undervalued, and dismissed mass responsibility of sexual engagement. It puts it right in your face. And it says, okay, you're taking advantage of all this energetic responsibility because you're choosing not to look at it, or you don't know how to look at it energetically. So we're going to show it to you physically now, right? These are low density vibrational matches that often have the ability to set you on correct course. Now, pregnancy is often and should be viewed as a blessing and a divine gift to now engage with creating life. Though, many people, if they're not in alignment with that, they're going to see it as a burden, right? Lust carries a huge, tremendous karmic load that often pays out real fast. And one of the obvious reasons for that is because if you're a lusty lusterson, then you're creating harems. And you've got all sorts of people on the line, and they're all tapped into your frequency and picking up on each other, which now here comes the drama, right? And then all sorts of chaos is going on, right? That's a real quick karmic load. Lust has a very powerful, high velocity, high inertia energetics to it. That's why it hits you so quick. That's why it only takes one gaze, or you might even feel it before you see him, right? Because lust recognizes lust or potential for lust. So because of this, lust moves through karmic timelines very thoroughly. Quite often, when you're engaging with somebody or groupings through lustful actions, it's another karmic loop playing out. And the more thorough, or the more often you've played out this karmic loop with this particular soul grouping, the more powerful the chaos and the karma is going to be, because you're exponentially creating more until you learn to see it and get out of it. It can create great loss. And because of the consumption of energetics that are always undervalued and perverted, it creates that much more love and sex fragmentation. Lust, I watched, unfortunately, downgrade many people, like all sins. For example, this can take a potential divine match that was placed into your field with another to get out of these karmic loops and misalign them and turn it into a shadow match or a false experience or a false twin or whatever your terminology is. This happens a lot, unfortunately. Lust will call in many different karmics where you're going to play out more karma because that's what you're attracting. And these will be painful, chaotic, dramatic experiences. Elementally speaking, if you're somebody who likes to utilize the elements or views things more on an elemental level, it can take all elemental forms. So, for example, with fire, you're going to experience this as the hot sexual desire that pulsates in the body. This can also be rage or passion. These can be outbursts that are dangerous, maybe physical, they can be sexual, verbal, what have you. The water element can be symbolized by the emotional drowning or the feeling of floating when you're in that mesmer. It's the waves of the sensory input that you're experiencing or being washed over by those euphoric states. It's also the bottoming out into a pool or a pit of emptiness that's inevitable after the high comes down. The air element is experienced through the pheromonal exchange. This can be the out-of-body experience where now you've checked out of your reality and everything's very surreal and you're in that stupor. This can be the thought form infiltration that you might be experiencing, or that they're throwing at you and you're picking up on their thoughts, or the entity's thoughts to impulse you. You might hear it very clearly and not recognize it because you're already mesmered or in your stupor and you go forward with it. This is also the disassociation of the alter moving into lust, or somebody coming at you with lust can alter you and disassociate you into the part of you that's susceptible to it, right? This can be when the entity takes over. That's a very etheric air type experience. The earth element can be represented by the physical and carnal acts, these sensations, carnal acts, the sensations, and the materialization of our desires through the beauty or the attraction and the magnetism that you're feeling. This can also be the Borg-like impulse or the robotic-like possession that you might experience or witness. It's also this strategic and tactical implementation that always comes with lust. The etheric spirit type symbolism is the entity impulse or the transference. Because like I said, when you're in that suction-like vacuum portal, these entities can hop in and out through you, through them, through other people. This is the hypnotic state. This is the stupor, the mesmer. This is also represented through the psychic or telepathic communication in the infestation. This can also be the spirit protection to ensure that you recognize the lust or stay away from it or pull yourself out of it. And of course, this is the spells, the magic, the hexes, the vexes, the mesmers, what have you, right? So, backlash of lust. This comes in the form of vengeance, of sabotage, rage, blame, slander or smear campaigns against you when you pull out of it. Jealousy, very common. And this can be efforts to create the jealousy or feeling it. This is possessiveness. All forms of attack, physical, emotional, sexual, mental, psychological, financial, what have you. It can be a psychotic break. This is fairly common, especially if you become fully possessed or so thoroughly attacked by somebody that is possessed. This can be seen as stalking, as cheating, etc. This goes on forever and ever and ever. These are just a few of the examples. So how do we identify the lust and how do we protect ourselves? Okay. So in regards to identification, lust impulse is very easy to spot because it's so visceral and physical. It's usually isolated to a specific zone in the body, often the erogenous zones. Somebody or an entity can send you a lust signature, which will be meant to impulse you quickly into sexual arousal. This could be the impulse or the thought or overcoming feeling that you should go masturbate or engage in some type of sexual act. If you slow this down and rewind it, you'll often feel where it came into your body in that isolated space. It can be the sexual zone. This can be impulsed by seeing something that you find erotic or sexual or attractive. This can be something sent to you telepathically from the person that's lusting after you, or the person that is lusting, thinking about that, or entity exchange. This is often like a whisper in your ear, or, an impulse that you feel the heat from it in the body. If you are engaging one-on-one with the individual or the individuals, or let's say you're watching pornography or any type of sexual business, anything that uses sex as a business engagement will absolutely be surrounded with lust, right? But you can notice it in their eyes. There will always be a tell in the eyes. Just like any entities are going to show up in the eyes. They often will flash because maybe when they know you spot them, they're going to retreat. So they're going to come out. It can be that mischievous flash combined with the sensation of jolts or charges of impulse in the body. And this is a big tell. Oftentimes, this is what, magnetizes the person in the first place. But if you stop and catch the mesmer, as soon as it happens, if you don't react or engage with it right after the impulse, you can rewind that real quick in your thoughts as while you're still standing there and recognize that's what just happened, and you can push it back out. Identify the pattern or the fracture in you that's attracting this. Because even if you're feeling as the prey or the target, there's still a reason you're susceptible to it. You know, it doesn't mean it's never going to happen to you again or somebody's going to come at you with lust because it's so commonly used. But why are you susceptible to it? How come you fell for it or you didn't catch it? This will be a fracture point in you. This will be a potential for a lesson in you. Other ways to identify it is everything I've already talked about, right? These are all, you know, examples of ways you can spot this. And again, very important to register that the impulse of a fantasy or a masturbation hook is an entity trying to get in or hook in deeper. So stop yourself when that happens. Even if you want to move forward with that fantasy or masturbating or engaging sexually, whatever it is, take a moment to cleanse and clear your field and make sure there's no entity or energy or implant or whatever that's going to use that opportunity to hook in. All right, so methods of protection. Utilizing very strong boundaries and dissipation techniques. So again, I already told you, for me, I tend to be on the extreme other side of lust, in my everyday when it comes to being repulsed by it or judging it or, turning into a wall. So when people come at me with invasive lust and I can spot it quickly, I do not ever let them touch me. If they touch me without me seeing them, if they do it when I'm not looking or I can't catch it, I don't care how obvious I'm being. I'm actually trying to be obvious so they understand that they, kind of grotesquely invaded my boundaries, and I'll energetically clear myself. One of my moves, I always do this. When somebody looks, it doesn't matter if it's male or female, if they're doing it sexually, if they're doing it in a subconscious way, or if they're just judging me, if they look me up and down, that unzips your chakra system, right? It unzips your meridian. And they always notice this, and I always do it. As soon as anybody looks me up and down, I immediately do this. I zip myself back up. And every time I do it, they subconsciously, they feel it. They know that's why I did it. They don't know what was happening, but they felt that energy, right? So if somebody comes at me with, lusty energy or an intention to hit on me in this way that's just too much or whatever it is, or they want to take a photo, with me, let's say we're all hanging out, hey, let's get a photo. I never let anybody take photos of me. My easy one on that one is, this is my only social media platform. I don't want to be put on other platforms, and that can offend them, but hey, it's not, you're not allowed to take my energy and snapshot it, freeze frame it, right? If they want to chat with me through flirtation, I always make sure that my guard is up and it's obvious and it's palpable to them, right? I get very blunt. I become very indifferent, and I might even step backwards because I want them to know that I don't like this. I don't care if this offends their ego, because to me, it disrespected me that they came at me with that energy in the first place. I communicate with very short responses or sentences, and I put up an energetic wall. I will also dismiss myself very quickly from after they approached me. Often, too, I look at them straight in the eye and I will find the entity in them. I will look directly at the entity, and telepathically, I will tell the entity that I see them and I do not consent and I do not appreciate them coming at me. If, I'm feeling really cocky, or I know that there's somebody who's not going to stop and is going to keep coming at me, I will verbally tell the entity. So where the human hears it and gets real confused or weirded out. And as soon as you tell the entity in them, it will create a very uncomfortable shift, both for the entity and the person that is housing the entity. They might think you're weird as all hell, but who cares? Because it'll make them very uncomfortable and they won't want to be around you anymore because the entities do not like being spotted. So that's a very powerful way to get them the hell away from you, right? Call on spirit for protection. Ask spirit for forgiveness for the ignorance you may be moving through or have moved through in your recent past that has attracted this into your field and or made you vulnerable to it in some way. Shroud yourself with spirit in that moment and drop into your heart, right? Call on the null point frequency. Call on the energetics of neutrality. An important required way to do this, and this isn't so instantaneous, this is doing your shadow work. Heal your patterns. If you don't heal the patterns that make you vulnerable to this or make you proliferate lust, if you're somebody who's trying to learn how to disengage yourself from using the strategy of lust, you have to find your patterns and you have to heal them. Otherwise, you're just going to redirect and subvert it to something else, or you're going to keep doing it. You're going to keep experiencing the chaos and the karma that always offloads through this. Something I find really important to do, because for me especially, because I told you I'm on the other end of the spectrum, I find it a requirement for me to differentiate the human engaging in lust or coming at me, differentiate their true light, their truth, from the cloak and the infestation of lust. I don't mean by any, way to say engage with them. That's not what I'm saying. Don't engage with that. I don't think it's healthy to engage with lust in this way. If you want to utilize lust in a playful way, in a gentle way in your relationship, or, maybe it's just a frequency you're comfortable with, you do you. There's no judgment here. But for me, I'm going to withdraw and I'm going to do it my way. But at the same time, I'm not going to demonize that human. Even if I see a demon in that human, I separate the demon from the human. I also will recognize if the human is so fully taken over by the demon, there's no saving grace. But I want to offer them their humanity back, and I want to hold strong to my null point, my plane of inertia, by being able to offer the forgiveness in my frequency. Talked about this before. This is called divine witnessing. Divine witnessing is a Christian term, but I really like it. I'm not Christian, but I enjoy this term and this idea. I do this a lot. So divine witnessing is not being naive to where somebody's at or where you're at or what the situation is. It's being real clear to that. But at the same time, understanding while this situation is happening or this person is acting this way, that you also see their higher potential. You're not going to be, future tripping. It's not about thinking, oh, they can get there. It's knowing they absolutely can get there if they choose to. They might not, and that's all about them. I don't really care if they do or they don't. But at the same time, I'm going to hold the energy that I see as their highest potential as a probability for them. And I'm going to celebrate that potential for them, because not only does that pull me out of the frequency that aligns with maybe where they're at in this moment or where this situation is at, because remember, we want to misalign with the denser frequency. But another thing that it does is it is an invitation to their truth, their soul, their spirit, to recognize their light. You offer them a space where maybe it'll give them a little bit of a niggling to wake up. At least a part of them will look at that and see it. They might shun away from it. That's fine. But you're offering a platform for them to say, hey, you can be here. This is possible. There's still hope, right? I see this in you. And this can just be done in a moment. It doesn't have to be some big ordeal. Or if you're in partnership and you want to stay in partnership, but you're uncomfortable with the way your partner's acting through this type of technique or strategy, then maybe you do want to hold that energy for them always and hold it for yourself. Or maybe you want to hold this for yourself as you're pulling yourself out of this density of these types of frequencies. So dissipation is very important when it comes to dealing with lust. In the last video where we talked about spell casting and blocking curses, deflection was a huge part of that. You can utilize deflection when it comes to lust, but you need to be careful with deflection in this situation. I think dissipation is a much more efficient, safe technique. The way you can dissipate, again, is use that neutrality frequency, use the null point. If you don't know what the null point is, please go back and watch my first video. It was within the first 15 minutes. I taught about what the null point of the plane of inertia is. So use that neutral frequency to demagnetize the charge and dissipate the energy. The reason that deflection can exacerbate the situation or be potentially dangerous for you in this situation is because when you deflect lust, lust bounces back at the person that is desiring to engage in lust. And they often will misinterpret that deflection. They won't recognize it as their own lust. They'll simply recognize it as lust. And they'll think, oh, this person's into it, and they'll go forward more with lust. So in this specific situation, it's not the most efficient technique. It can be if they're coming at you in a really, vile way, but again, be careful, because even if you perceive this as so obviously wrong, if they're putting that out there, they probably like that kind of jam, and they might be open to receiving it right back, right? Okay, so be careful with mirroring when it comes to lust. Because lust is very volatile and it has tremendous propulsion and trajectory, it's really sticky and insidious. So in your energetic field, in your Taurus field, if you don't know what your Taurus field is or how to run and cleanse your energy, I sell I think it's $7. There's a class on my website, worldpeaceprojects.global, worldpeaceprojects.org, that teaches you what your Taurus field is and how to cleanse and clear your energetic field. Totally worth that $7 purchase, right? So within your Taurus field, within your electromagnetic field, you need an ample amount of cushion in order to slow, halt, and disperse the lustful, sticky energy coming at you, right? So it's coming with such a strong trajectory, it needs time to slow down and to stop before it hits you, right? So expand your bubble and thicken it, right? And imagine that within your field, there's all of these filters, or, you could even think of like a parachute pack if you want, anything that your imagination works with to slow something down, to halt it, and then completely dissolve it. That's what you're going to want to do to this energy, right? You want to deconstruct it, okay? So you can create like a cosmic celestial cloud of null point around you, right? Especially protecting your head, your heart, and your erogenous zones, front and back. Because the reason we have that term, watch your back, is because attack energy also comes often towards your back body. So create these cushions behind your head where they can, bring in these false thought forms. Your heart, right? Obviously, this is going to engage you in that potential limerence or, obsessive type energy. And then obviously erogenous zones, because it's lust, it's sexually engaged. That's where it's aimed towards. And these are also zones that entities love to hook into. Super, super duper common places for entities to hook in is the back of your crown. The back of your heart is more common than the front, in my experience. Your spine and your sphincter. They often will hook into your sphincter muscle because that can grab your root chakra. So bottom and top, now they're hooked into your whole chakral system. So these are the zones you want to think about protection around, right? Use blocking with your boundaries. Create very strong boundaries. A lot of spiritual people and women tend to have difficulty with boundaries. This is something that I'm still always growing and working on, boundaries, because it's easy to confuse being nice with very weak boundaries, right? So don't be afraid to be too overt or rude or, dismissive. Let yourself swing to that end of the spectrum for a while until you find your middle. If you find yourself somebody that's always highly susceptible and vulnerable to these types of energies, go overboard for a while and then you'll find your middle. But it's better than being, under protection. It's better to have too much of it and then taper down, in my opinion. Use your psychic tools if you have them. If you don't have Psychic 101, I have a course on this. I have a ton of classes on this. Go take a look at them. They're super affordable. And they're really important to have these tools. I think everybody should be having Psychic 101. It's easy once you learn it, and it works really well to a certain extent, right? Use your acute intuition. Remember that the frequency signature of lust is meant to mesmer you, engage you, entice you. So use those types of frequencies as an alert. It doesn't mean at all that it's unhealthy or dangerous if you feel enticed, or you feel attracted, or you feel magnetized. Though, allow these types of frequencies to be what triggers you to stop, check, assess, use your intuition. As soon as you feel that, take a moment to pause. Why do I feel this? What is this? Is this healthy? Is this safe? Just do your checks and balances before you choose to move forward. Because impulse is meant to keep you from having a moment of pause, right? And as soon as you move forward in that impulse, if it's, entity laden, then you've dropped your guard and the entity can already get in. So it's very important to slow yourself down from instant reaction into inspired action, right? You just need that moment. Put yourself on alert. As soon as you're attracted, let the attraction itself be the moment when you're like, okay, here's an attraction. Let me look at this for a minute. It doesn't even mean you have to stop engaging with this person. Now you can just start observing that much more. Start reading their frequency. Check them out. Look for the entities. What's going on here? Where do you feel this in your body? Are you hearing their thoughts already in your mind? This type of thing. Are you already in a mesmer, in a stupor? Are you already fully forward and out of your body? Do you need to pull yourself back? Can you take a moment and use your interoceptivity? Again, I have a class on interoceptivity. If you don't know what this is, go buy it for $7. Feel the back of your head from the inside. Touch the back of your head. Touch your back body. Are you fully out of your body right now and completely engaged? Pull yourself back. And now look at them. Can you take a moment and see out of your eyes? Can you look down and see your nose? Are you in your body, right? Or are you all checked out so much that now you can disassociate a split second? These are super easy, quick techniques you can do. No one will even know you're doing them. They're very helpful, right? Now, another important one, if you're efforting to get out of lust, whether you're giving it or receiving it, and you're willing to do the work on your aspects, is of course abstain from lustful fantasies, masturbation, sex, lustful flirtations, just for a while. If you think you're infested or under attack, pull yourself out of the most obvious danger zones to reassess and check yourself, right? Another very important way to protect yourself, and a pretty necessary psychic, energetic cleansing, hygiene, energy hygiene, or dissolvement. Go in and clean your sexual body. Call me up, book a session. Do you need help cleansing, clearing your sexual body? Do you need help getting out of lust attack, right? Do you know how to do the work? Dissolve your sexual cords. Again, I sell classes and courses on how to do it. It's not hard once you learn it, and you should be doing this as maintenance. Dissolve the sexual cords. Cleanse and clear your sexual body, which often requires you to engage in full forgiveness You might need to reverse engineer these timelines with these karmics and heal the karma so you don't create the loops. But in the meantime, because that takes more time, one should always be doing the subconscious shadow work if you want to be on the path of the divine healing, right? So do the work, cleanse your sexual body. You can do this in the morning as soon as you wake up. It doesn't have to be hard. Use all of the different techniques that I gave you in the last video, right? Very easy one to do. Physically remove yourself from the situation. That one's huge. Keep removing yourself from these situations. Disengage. If you're in an environment where you can't get away from it, like maybe right now it's your partner and you don't know how to deal with it and you're just maintaining while you figure this out, because you love the person, or it's your work environment, or it's unfortunately in your family environment, or whatever it is, right? It's part of your friend group. Energetically disengage, right? Utilize the techniques we've already talked about, and you can utilize a lot of the techniques I talked about in blocking the spells too, to energetically disengage from this and neutralize the frequency. It's also very important to neutralize the rage that comes up in you, because that's another frequency that matches the bandwidth of the lust. So if an entity can't impulse you through the target frequency, aka lust, then it's gonna be happy with taking the dregs. If it gets your goat and makes you mad and brings in rage or fear, that's still enough for it to get sloppy seconds, right? So when this comes up, work on your forgiveness of neutralization, especially when it's a situation that's long-standing. If you always maintain and hold to or effort to do this, your neutrality and your integrity, especially if there's other people that are being eluded by these situations, inevitably it's going to shine through. I heard the other day on a video of a woman who specializes in narcissism, and she was saying that they've proven that truth is 100 times more powerful frequentially than a lie. This is why truth prevails, because it's got more staying power, right? So if you hold to your truth, especially in long-standing situations, it is most likely that inevitably your truth will prevail. And all of those that were under the illusion of the lie will finally awaken to the truth, because the lies don't have enough staying power. And it's going to create chaos. It's hard to keep up with all the lies, right? By nature, they're chaotic, and their frequency is spottable because there's a fracture in it, right? It's like a static frequency. It's like, if this is a weird way to do it, but I'm going to anthropomorphize this. People that are uncomfortable with bees and wasps, okay, one piece of that is because this bee has a stinger, or this wasp has a stinger and can hurt them. But a really big component of that is because a bee or a wasp frequency is really high vibration. It's really quick, rapid, right? This vibration is very unnerving for most humans because our vibration is slower. So really what bothers them the most is this high frequency vibration that brings them off kilter. It's an agitating experience. This is like a lie. Lies are distorted. Their energy vibration is real wonky. It's all over the place. It's corrupt. It's it won't sustain. So it makes people uncomfortable that are in the frequency of it, whether they've been told the lie or they're giving the lie. It's hard to maintain that because there's no stability in it. It's the same with this type of energy. If you hold to your truth and anchor in, you can dissipate a lot of the energetics or receive help from others around you simply because you're holding in your light. And that funk vibration of lust, it's real neurotic, right, will be revealed. If you're dealing with more potentially dangerous situations. So let's say this lust is stemming from a narcissist or sociopathy or anything that you feel like you need that much more. First of all, please get help. Please get professional help if you're dealing with this type of situation that requires a lot of very strategic detangling work. I have been there. I understand. I'm very sorry if you're going through that. I empathize with you. I know how difficult and consuming it can be to untangle yourself, and I promise you, you can. I have done it, and I thrive through it now. But if you need more thorough methods to assist yourself in disengaging from lust, utilize the gray rock method. Gray rock method is like acting like a rock. Be a wall. Be a gray, boring rock that gives nothing and gets nothing. No information, no reaction, no emotion. That isn't sexy or lusty at all, right? That'll disengage it real quick. You might have to stand that ground or be that rock for a bit, but trust me, they're not going to enjoy that. It's not appealing. Be highly indifferent. Indifference works like a charm, right? If you don't give any emotion, this isn't being rude, you're just totally numb, right? No contact, very important. And if you are dealing with something more serious or even high level lust, it's very important to understand that at this point, if you've been dealing with this long, whether you have been giving out lust or receiving it, and you know it's a big issue in your life, in some way there's an obsession, there's an addiction, there's a compulsion, then it's really, really imperative that you understand that now your brain chemistry is absolutely addicted to it, and there needs to be some form of neurological rewiring. There's a lot of ways to do this. This can be tapping. This can be rapid eye movement. There's a lot of different modalities that deal with this and assist you with this. My favorite ways to do this is through kinesiology, but to each their own. But that absolutely will need to be addressed. It's why it's all consuming in your mind in the first place. I hope this video was enjoyable. I know it was informative to a certain extent. I hope you guys are great. If you would like some assistance, please visit my website. Give me a thumbs up. Takes half a second. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye.